Thank you everybody for coming and for the other groups that are represented today, and we'll be introducing them in a few minutes. My name is Lila Rose. I serve as president of Live Action, and we're holding this press conference this morning because of for a few reasons that are important to every person in our country, men and women, important for the protection of our children and for the protection of our teens. And it's very sad and disturbing to say we're holding today's press conference outside of Planned Parenthood. This is a facility where they perform abortions, and Planned Parenthood, what many people don't realize, is the biggest abortion chain in our country. And they commit over 320,000 abortions every year, which is over a fourth of abortions in this nation. And we're here to call attention to this important fact because we're losing over 320,000 children, innocent boys and girls, to the great violence of abortion, this human rights abuse every year directly because of this group, because of Planned Parenthood. On top of that, it's crucial that we are made aware that in our nation's capital here, we're just miles from here, our Congress works. We have the fact that over $500 million goes to support Planned Parenthood in taxpayer subsidies. And in the recent GAO report, extremely disturbing news has surfaced that under Obamacare, over 1,000 plans, 1,000 healthcare plans subsidized by the government will include the killing of the unborn child, will include abortion, which the vast majority of Americans do not want to be funded by the government, and yet through funding streams directly going to Planned Parenthood, which is a $1.2 billion corporation with over $500 million coming from taxpayers, as well as under Obamacare, we have countless millions, tens of millions going to the biggest abortion chains. On top of that, we want to draw attention to the fact of the recent stories that have emerged about Planned Parenthood's sexual agenda for teens. So there's a few different things to note here, and the different folks today will be drawing attention to different themes. But first of all, there's the fact that Planned Parenthood is the biggest abortion chain, that over 90% of women who walk into their clinics, into their facilities, who are pregnant, are going to end up having an abortion. So instead of the options counseling that Planned Parenthood may claim to promote, over 90% of women walking into their facilities who are pregnant will end up having an abortion. Doesn't seem like a lot like choice. But beyond that, the recent information that's emerged about Planned Parenthood's sexual agenda for teens. So there is the recent undercover tapes from Live Action exposing Planned Parenthood facilities and staffers counseling who they think are teen girls, 15 and 16-year-olds, how to practice BDSM or forms of sadomasochism during sex, encouraging asphyxiation, the accessing of porn websites, going to sex shops, which by the way is not legal in most states for underage girls, using asphyxiation, choking, strangulation, and other dangerous practices during sex, and encouraging and promoting this to teen girls. Along with that, there's also the disturbing reports that continue to surface about the rampant sexual abuse cover-up at Planned Parenthood. We're talking about underage girls who are the victims of sexual abuse, who become pregnant, who end up going into a Planned Parenthood facility or being taken there under threat by an abuser, and instead of immediately reporting that abuse, Planned Parenthood covers up the abuse with a secret abortion, $500 to sometimes thousands of dollars, abortion.
Stop interfering with women's private health care decisions. This is a sham. This is a ridiculous protest against a totally legal procedure. Stop messing with women's lives. Shame on you. Shame on all of you.
For the sake of our children in the womb, our young girls, and of course for the sake of women across our country, especially our young girls who are the victims of abuse and also who are being promoted dangerous sexual practices that are going to hurt them in the long run. So all of this information is to call for Congress to immediately stop taxpayer funding of the biggest abortion chain in our country, to stop taxpayer funding of abortion through Obamacare and through any other program, because it's a fundamental violation of human rights and it's against the ultimate empowerment and the protection of women and our children. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by a group of other great leaders in our movement. First, we're going to have Ryan Baumberger, who's the co-founder of the Radiance Foundation, to share some comments with us. So Ryan, please come up and join us.
To be quite honest, I wish I didn't have to be here today. I wish we didn't have to speak about the injustice, the social injustice of abortion, but we do. My name is Ryan Baumberger. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of the Radiance Foundation, a life-affirming organization that tackles these tough issues, and this is the human rights issue of our day. I'm particularly passionate about this issue because many in the world said that I should have been aborted. My biological mother was raped, yet she chose to be stronger than her circumstances. And many women that pass through here are being told that they are not strong enough. And I'll tell you what, women are the most resilient, resourceful human beings on the planet. And what the abortion industry tells them every single day, the lies, the miseducation, is that they're not strong enough. And I thank God that my birth mom, despite the horror and the violence of being raped, chose courage and went through 9 months of a traumatic pregnancy and gave me life, allowed me to grow up in an incredible family, multiracial family. 15, I was adopted. None of my other siblings were adopted, disproving the myth that there are unwanted children. Unintended does not equal unwanted, and it absolutely does not equal unloved. So here we are with Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion chain that defrauds the American public in so many ways. For instance, if you go to the website and you look at the About Us, they describe Margaret Sanger, their founder, the elitist and leading eugenicist. Eugenics was rooted in racism, rooted in elitism. And they say in Sanger's America, women couldn't vote. Well, Sanger was born in 1879, died in 1966. Women got the right to vote before 1966. In fact, the 19th Amendment secured that right back in 1920. But see, they lie about the most easily discoverable and provable things. How much more do they lie about the more crucial issue of abortion? So here, I just got back from Texas, and Texas isn't putting up with the lies of Planned Parenthood, so they defunded Planned Parenthood. And this is amazing because Title X funding, federal Title X funding, actually funded 300 reproductive health care clinics in Texas. And what Governor Perry did, and pro-life activists in that state said, we are not funding a billion-dollar organization. They don't need our money. They're violating the law. Title V funding actually says an abortion-providing facility cannot get Title V funding, but Planned Parenthood continue to get those funds. So Governor Perry and these pro-life activists changed everything. With HB 2, they erased that. And here's the amazing thing. The Texas Women's Health Program now funds 3,000 medical facilities, real medical facilities, and physicians who provide reproductive health care, true reproductive health care, not abortions for women. There's more access for women in Texas today than there was last year. And Planned Parenthood wants to cry and look and act as if it's the victim. Planned Parenthood is the bully. When you're talking about 1,000 deaths a year, they are the bully. In New York City and the state of New York, more black babies are aborted than born alive. Yet the board chair, the new board chair, Alexis McGill Johnson, has the audacity to say that the same people who are bringing these restrictions against abortion were the same ones who brought poll taxes and literacy tests. No, Miss Johnson, no Planned Parenthood. The same people that fought for slavery, the same people who fought for separate but equal Jim Crow laws, the same people that allowed and enabled lynchings, the same people, that's the Democrat Party. And that's the same party today that defends abortion for every reason, for any reason, through the entire pregnancy. Planned Parenthood is defrauding the American public. They're not the savior of poor women. They're not the savior of women. And they're definitely not the savior of the black community. And it's about time that Congress realizes this billion-dollar welfare organization needs to be defunded. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, it's so important to note the history of Planned Parenthood when we're evaluating how they're operating today, and that a black woman today, as Ryan was mentioning, black children today in New York, for example, are more likely to be aborted than they are to be born, and black women in our country today are 3 to 5 times more likely than whites to have abortions. And that's something that is actually, when you study the founding of Planned Parenthood and the writings of their founder, Margaret Sanger, it's a chilling reality of some of the vision that they were founded with. Next, I'd like to have Missy Hernandez with Students for Life of America come and share some comments. Thank you, Missy.
Hi, I'm Missy Martinez with Students for Life of America. I'm the National High School Program Coordinator. 5 universities and 1 high school are all within 5 miles of this very Planned Parenthood building, and it is no mistake. Nearly 80% of Planned Parenthood facilities are located within 5 miles of a college campus. And 44% of abortions that are committed are on college-aged women. Every single woman that walks through the door of a Planned Parenthood is a number, and her preborn child is a $. Planned Parenthood tells these pregnant college and high school students, most of them in desperation because of their pregnancy, that abortion is their best option. But the abortion giant doesn't care about women, especially young women. Students for Life of America has been taking the truth about Planned Parenthood to college campuses with our Planned Parenthood Project, educating college students on the corrupt and dirty business practices and what the organization really has planned for them. The plan includes providing pornographic sex education that normalizes promiscuity, providing poor quality and faulty birth control, and when the faulty birth control fails, offering deceptive counseling and biased information in order to meet their abortion quota. For every one adoption referral, Planned Parenthood commits 145 abortions. We visited over 50 college campuses since last year with this project, and all of the statistics we cite are directly from Planned Parenthood's annual report. And when students learn the truth, their favorability for Planned Parenthood often drops. One young lady at the University of Southern Mississippi was going to Planned Parenthood for birth control, and after seeing what the abortion giant is truly about, informed me that she would never go back. College and high school students need compassionate alternatives to abortion. They shouldn't have to choose between their education and their child. Millions and millions of our tax dollars go to this corrupt business that shamelessly profits off of women in need. Why do they need government assistance when they racked in over $150 million from abortion in 2011? Defund Planned Parenthood and stop this corrupt organization from preying on our young women. Thank you.
Thank you, Missy. I think the fact that one out of every 145 for every 145 abortions, only one is an adoption referral at Planned Parenthood is a statistic that we should all really think about, especially when this organization claims to promote options and choice for women, but the focus, of course, is abortion, and they are the biggest abortion provider in our country. Next, we're going to have Allison Howard with Concerned Women for America.
Good morning, and thank you so much for being here. I'm Allison Howard, Communications Director at Concerned Women for America. We're the nation's largest public policy women's organization. I just want to take a second to thank Lila for all of the amazing work that she and Live Action have done, to thank Ryan for sharing his story, and to thank Missy for being another young woman up here advocating for life. Because at the end of the day, we as women must stick together. We have each other in times of crisis, but thank goodness there are men that are showing leadership as well. Because this is not just a women's issue. While many would like to paint it as though there are only women that care about this issue, I will tell you firsthand, it's not. Participating in a Young Women for America, which is CWA's college chapter at Liberty University, I was able to have Norma McCorvey before us and speak about her story. Norma McCorvey is Roe in Roe v. Wade, for those who don't know. She is now 100% pro-life, and she wears the guilt of what took place under her name all those years ago. I went home that Christmas after having an amazing pro-life week on campus to hear my own father sit down and explain to me that he owed me an apology. He owed my mom an apology, and he had to ask for forgiveness from God. Because before he was saved, and he knew what was going on in the beauty of life, he had himself taken a woman that he was dating to go and get an abortion. So I have a lost sibling. And it's been a year of just accepting that and thinking about that, but also to see on my father's face the pain that he wore as a man. That he carried this, that he called that woman and needed to apologize, and she didn't want to hear it, but he had to apologize. That to me proves that there are hearts out there behind this issue. We so easily let it roll off the tongue that 55 million babies have been lost since Roe v. Wade. 55 million. But that's 55 million mothers and fathers that lost that opportunity to love. Men and women that are hurting. And we are here are called to address that. We are not here today because we don't have anything else to do. We are here today because this is the social injustice of our time. Because it is worth your energy, your time, your donations, and your attention to fight back against companies that turn profit on pain, that overcharge and underprovide for our country's families. Planned Parenthood receives $1.2 million A year? A day? What would you do to help this country with $1.2 million? What would you do? Maybe if you had that for a year. But I'll tell you, they have $1.2 million of taxpayer dollars a day. And they instead choose to tell women that they're alone, to tell women they're not strong enough, and that they're their only option. I'm here to tell women listening and to thank the women that have gone before me and chosen life. Today, in a culture that's more pro-life than ever, we have an opportunity to address this social injustice. Planned Parenthood, if you would like to continue on your way, please do so and do like the rest of the nonprofits up here do and raise your own money. Go ask for donations. Make the case like Lila does and like those of us up here, including Concerned Women for America, do before donors to pitch our cause. If you're that needed, then go get your own money. But please don't make Americans complicit in the act of abortion, because now we have that on our conscience and on our hands, and it's our right and our ability to speak out against it. So thank you, Lila, for having us here today, and thank you for those here in attendance listening as well.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Mary Drury with Americans United for Life.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Drury. I'm with Americans United for Life, the legal architects of the pro-life movement. We stand here today in front of Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion provider, to highlight the results of the GAO investigation into taxpayer funding of abortion through Obamacare. 7 out of 10 Americans agree that their taxpayer dollars should not be used for abortion. The results of the GAO report prove that the Obama administration has failed to keep its promise to prevent taxpayer funding for abortion, taxpayer funding from being used for abortion through Obamacare. And it proves that the administration is permitting insurance issuers to break the law by allowing the commingling of abortion funds with the taxpayer-subsidized healthcare dollars. The abortion funding in Obamacare identified through the GAO report proves that the practices of this administration are out of touch with the views of most Americans. The Obama administration is ignoring its own accounting gimmick, which requires a separate payment for abortion premiums and a separate payment for real health care in the plans offered through the exchanges. The accounting scheme was suggested by the Democrats in order to skirt around the requirements of the Hyde Amendment by claiming to keep private abortion dollars from commingling with taxpayer-subsidized healthcare dollars. The GAO report proves that this scheme is being ignored in practice. The GAO surveyed several Obamacare insurance issuers and found that not one of these issuers is collecting separate payments for the abortion premium. And most insurance issuers are not even itemizing the amount of the premium that is being used for abortions. Taxpayer funding for abortion through Obamacare is a problem created by the federal government, and it's a problem that only the federal government can fix. The House of Representatives took action to protect American taxpayers this past January when it passed the No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion Act, a bill which would apply the Hyde Amendment to all federal funding, including Obamacare. This bill would stop any government funding for abortion. The No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion Act was introduced in the Senate in May 2013, but Harry Reid and his pro-abortion Senate has been blocking this bill for 17 months without giving it so much as a hearing. This November, Americans must hold Harry Reid and his pro-abortion Senate accountable for its inaction on the No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion Act. We must cast our vote to take back the Senate for life and to break Harry Reid's blockade on pro-life legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next, we're going to have Joshua Duggar with the Family Research Council share some remarks.
Well, thanks, Lila, and thanks to all of you for being here. It's not an encouraging thing to stand outside of a facility like this and to realize just for a moment what actually happens here. Young women come in and their lives are changed forever. And there's often the woman who's pregnant who comes away with more than just the loss of her child's life, but with the scars that she carries forever. And I'm Josh Duggar, Executive Director at Family Resource Council Action, and I'm also the oldest of 19 kids and counting. Some of you may have watched our reality show. So that's what I call real Planned Parenthood, is when you're actually planning to have kids and to be a parent. But that's not what this clinic is about. This is not about helping women. No, quite honestly, this is about quite the contrary. And what we're seeing and what we're talking about today is about this GAO report. And let me be very clear. Americans are sick and tired of the federal government telling them what they can and cannot do and trampling on their religious conscience. And I'll tell you, as a father of 3, my wife and I are blessed to have our children. But I'll tell you, I don't want them growing up in America where they cannot even live out their own religious convictions without the government consistently trampling on their rights. That's not pro-choice. That's not in favor of the terms that they're using. It's so deceptive. And as it's already been said so eloquently, but I'll restate this. Abortion is not an option. When we're talking about religion and we're talking about those of us who are making our own personal choices, you can debate abortion, and we do that. And we've been talking about the atrocities, but let me be very clear. When you're talking about who's going to pay for that, I am not going to stand idly by while this federal government continues to pay for organizations like Planned Parenthood and others who are taking the lives of innocent unborn children. This is very personal for me. My sister Josie was born at 25 weeks. I can remember walking into the NICU and seeing her there, 1 pound and 6 ounces. Now, many will say at 25 weeks, oh, that's okay, it's just fetal tissue, or whatever this may be, just some tissue in there. But I'll tell you, that was a human life. And as I watched my sister Josie fight for life from such an early age, knowing that in that same, just down the road from there, in that same city, there were doctors, so-called doctors, who were taking the lives of innocent unborn children. And that set very firmly in my heart. And as I went down to our state capitol and I lobbied and I stood beside the brave men and women who were standing up for life to pass some of the toughest reforms in the Arkansas history, to stand up to protect women, to bring up these clinic standards where the regulations are low often, where they're not looking out for the needs of women, where they're not standing up for those who are vulnerable. And as I was reminded of my sister Josie and seeing that tiny, precious life, about her head about the size of a cue ball, I realized how fragile life is. But even in that stage where they can't even speak one word for themselves, they can't say anything. And yet, organizations like Planned Parenthood will go in there and they'll continue to lie to women, as it's been clearly laid out. They lie to women and they're able to tell them false things. And on those premises, women make life-changing decisions, literally, and life-ending decisions that they carry with them for years to come. This is not the place of the federal government or the state governments to be telling people that hold deeply held religious convictions and Americans that agree overwhelmingly that your rights are going to be trampled because you have no choice. That's what we're doing here, and that's what I'm going to be doing this weekend when I'm traveling through numerous states, standing up for candidates who are going to go into the United States Senate, and they're going to end abortion. I truly believe that in my lifetime, we are going to end abortion in the United States of America once and for all. And I'm not going to stand idly by as they continue to fight on the other side. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Hi, I'm a Live Action board member, and I also have personal experience with abortion. I was a registered nurse at a hospital on the southwest side of Chicago when I discovered that the hospital was involved in a late-term abortion method that sometimes resulted in babies being aborted alive. And if they were aborted alive, they were allowed to die without any medical intervention whatsoever. And one night a nursing coworker was taking a little abortion survivor to the soiled utility room, which is where they were taken, to die. And when she told me what she was doing, I couldn't bear the thought of this suffering child dying alone, and so I cradled and rocked him for the 45 minutes that he lived. Needless to say, this was a life-changing event. And when Christ Hospital wouldn't stop, I went public, and I was part of forwarding legislation on the federal and the state level called the Born Alive Infants Protection Act. And I had legislators argue with me in committee that giving abortion survivors the same rights to life as wanted babies would somehow lead to the overturn of Roe v. Wade. My own state senator, Barack Obama, argued against this legislation in committee and voted against it 4 times. And we now know Barack Obama is one of Planned Parenthood's best friends. He was willing to shut down the government in 2011, all to keep Planned Parenthood from being defunded. Someday, a documentary is going to be made about Planned Parenthood. It will be a riveting documentary, and parts of it are going to seem too incredibly horrible to be true. It's going to seem unbelievable to people in the future that Planned Parenthood was able to commit so many wrongs against the American public, and the American public was unaware. And some of those who were aware didn't believe it because the truth was so incredible. And there are some of those who are aware and pushing what Planned Parenthood is doing, taxpayer funding of abortion, for personal political gain. The evils that Planned Parenthood is committing are extraordinarily evident even today. We know that Planned Parenthood commits Medicaid and Title X fraud on a massive level. The Department of Justice just convicted Planned Parenthood in Texas of Medicaid fraud, and there are investigations ongoing in Texas, California, and Iowa on fraud. State audits in 3 other states show that Planned Parenthood is cooking the books around the country. We know that live action investigations showed that Planned Parenthoods across the U.S. are willing to aid and abet sex traffickers, to the point that Planned Parenthood will commit abortions on underage sex slaves who don't even speak English. We know that Planned Parenthood is willing to commit underage abortions so that parents and authorities don't find out that young girls are pregnant. Legal action has been taken against Planned Parenthoods in Arizona, Ohio, and Alabama. And live action investigations have found Planned Parenthood guilty of this underage sex cover-up in 5 other states. We know that Planned Parenthood refuses to follow FDA guidelines on the administration of RU 486. And this results in the killing of many women. We know that 8 women at least have died from following Planned Parenthood's off-label protocol for RU 486 administration, while 0 women have died following the FDA protocol, which Planned Parenthood is fighting from abiding by this very day in the court system. And now, Planned Parenthood wants through Obamacare to net even more windfall profits through more contraceptive payments and abortion payments. This dangerous organization must be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jill. I want to bring this entire conference back down to the 2 primary victims of abortion. Blessed Mother Teresa, in letters to the United States, she even wrote a letter to the Supreme Court when another abortion decision was up in the 90s. And constantly, despite her work in Calcutta, India, with the poor and the lepers and the lonely, with the dying, she had very strong words to say about abortion. And whenever she had the opportunity, she would make such statements. And one statement that she made in the 90s to a group of American politicians was this, and she's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, she's an expert on peace, and she said that the greatest destroyer of peace in the world today, and again, she's a Peace Prize winner, she's recognized by the world, by the international community as this leader for peace, but she says the greatest destroyer of peace in the world today is the cry of the innocent unborn child. And she went on to say, in a nation where a mother can kill her own child, what is left but for you and for I to kill one another? She recognized that abortion sows violence in the most intimate human relationships, where there should be a bond of trust, where there should be the safest place, the most security. The womb has become a war zone in our country. So we call attention to the facts that every American needs to be aware of. Every taxpayer, every parent, every young person, every woman deserves to know that Planned Parenthood is the biggest abortion chain in our country, committing over a fourth of all abortions, over 320,000 abortions every year, that they're receiving, even before Obamacare funds, they're receiving over $500 million in taxpayer subsidy, that under Obamacare, under the PrEP program, they're going to be receiving more money targeted towards so-called sex education of teens, but we've exposed that to actually show Planned Parenthood pushing what is dangerous, violent sexual practices to teens, to young girls, including sadomasochism, and to show that under Obamacare, according to the latest GAO report, 1,000 healthcare plans will now be covering abortion, covering the killing of the unborn child, subsidized by, guess who, by us, by taxpayers. All of these reasons is why we're calling on Congress to defund Planned Parenthood, to immediately stop taxpayer subsidy of Planned Parenthood, and on people around the country, especially women, young people, to stand up and say enough is enough. This is the greatest human rights abuse of our day. We're losing thousands of children every day to this violence. Women are being hurt. No woman walks into an abortion clinic feeling powerful. No woman walks into an abortion clinic feeling like, this is great, I'm excited to have my abortion today. Women walk into abortion clinics like the one here in a position of powerlessness, in a position where they feel that this is their last resort. For the sake of our children, for the sake of our women, we can and we must do better than abortion. And it begins with Congress, with the folks on Capitol Hill, finally hearing the American people, especially the voice of women and young people in our country, to stop the government subsidy of abortion in our nation. Thank you all so much for coming this morning. We hope to be in touch with all of you afterwards, and some of the speakers will be available for more interviews afterwards. But thank you again, and God bless. Thank you.